So a little bit of a backstory. Wonder Woman 2017 is probably the closest to a classic that the DC Extended Universe has actually given us. So naturally you would think that its sequel would actually at least somewhat be similar. You'd be wrong in that assessment. So Wonder Woman 1984 takes place in 1984, and it is one of the more bizarre movies that I have seen in recent movies. This movie is so strange to watch, and that's really sad to think about, because the first one, the last movie that we got with Wonder Woman, or at least the last Wonder Woman movie, was actually very good. It was well paced, it was extremely exciting, it has some of the most iconic moments that the DC cinematic universe has ever given us, like that scene where she's going down no man's land, she's raiding that city, that town, also like the training scene in the opening of that movie. This movie kind of does that, but it doesn't do it as well. So the things that I liked about this movie, what I liked in this movie is Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She is magnificent as Wonder Woman. She is as perfect a Wonder Woman as Wonder Woman could ever be. Seriously, there's nothing wrong about her. She is amazing. Kristen Wiig in this movie, I haven't seen her outside of anything comedic. So anything that I have seen her in, like Ghostbusters or Paul, I think she was in, she's been comedic, but she's never actually done much else that I have seen. So when I was watching her in this movie, I was like, wow, she is actually good at the dramatic moments. That's good. I like that. In fact, I liked her in concept. We'll talk more about that in a minute. The other person that I liked in this movie is fucking Mando! Pedro Pascal, I hope I said that right. Din Djarin from Mandalorian is in this movie, and the dude is magnificent. He's probably my favorite part of this movie. The dude is he's just a joy to watch on screen. The dude's funny, he's extremely over the top. He's one of those comic book villains that just, he's like, I could be here, but I'm gonna go up here, just for the fun of it. And it's extremely fun to watch. The dude is extreme, and he's brilliant at it. And I've only really seen this dude like in Game of Thrones and Mandalorian. Those are the only two things I've seen him in, and in both of them he's great, but he's never gone over the top. He's only just been baseline guy, dude, person in shows. He's never more eccentric than he is in this movie. The dude is so good. And the other thing that I fucking love in this movie, Hans Zimmer has never ever, to my knowledge, made a terrible score. The dude knows how to make music. The dude is like Danny Elfman. He is just so good at making really, really well-crafted music. I have a blast listening to his music over and over again. I listened to the Interstellar soundtrack so many times. It is really good. I listened to the Dark Knight soundtrack. Hans Zimmer's score is probably the best element of this movie, and it is really good. I loved the score in this movie, particularly in the opening scene. The opening scene probably has the best score in the movie. And outside of that, there's really not much else that I liked in this movie. Chris Pine. I liked Chris Pine as an actor, and what he does in this movie. Those are great. Since I'm talking about Chris Pine, his character in this movie doesn't make any sense. So from what I gathered from the trailer is, at least how it seemed to me from the trailer, Kristen Wiig starts off as a character, as like the Selena Kyle-ish character, which is fine, and then something happens. I assumed that it was some sort of scientific experiment that Maxwell Lord was doing, which is played by Pedro Pascal. I really hope I'm saying that right. And Kristen Wiig's character, Barbara Minerva, I believe her name is, gets involved in it, and then she becomes Cheetah. That's what I thought the trailer was pitching, but no. But basically in this movie, they find a rock or a stone that can grant wishes. It's basically the genie's lamp, except with no valve. The only valve is that one wish per person, and that's it. But that's really the only valve that thing has. So basically, Every person who makes any person who makes a wish can just wish for anything in the world. They can wish for somebody to come back from the dead. But here's what baffles me is Chris Pine's character. You gathered from the trailer that that Diana wished for him to come back, but he doesn't come back to life. He just comes back in some guy's body. And I was sitting there watching it like, why did he come back in somebody else's body? I would have just assumed that either he rose from the dead or that the last moment he was alive, he would have just got zapped out of that moment and then just plucked into 1984. That's at least what I assumed. But no, he's just in somebody else's body, and it's like, why? It never gets explained. It's one of the weirdest elements in the movie because it doesn't make any sense, because all of the wishes that get made or that get shown in this movie, like somebody wishes for a wall to be made and a wall just appears out of nowhere, or somebody else wishes for like a bomb or whatever and the bomb just appears, or somebody wishes for somebody to be dead and they die instantaneously. So it doesn't really make sense why Chris Pine's character couldn't just be Chris Pine's character from the last movie, just his physical being just transported from there to here. It doesn't make any sense. It was the biggest question mark I had over my head, and it was never answered. Also, another thing that I didn't like in this movie was the last movie had the greatest sense of urgency. You are plucked right into the middle of the plot of that movie. You go right in there, and you are immediately immersed. You know what's happening. You know Ares is the bad guy. You know that World War I is happening, and you probably know that Ares is the cause. So now, Wonder Woman has to try and stop Ares. Bam. Immediately, inside of 10 minutes, you know what's happening. In this movie, I literally checked my watch 40 minutes into the movie and I had no idea what was happening. They took so long to actually get to the point of this movie. Basically, the plot starts when Chris Pine's character appears out of nowhere. And then when he appears, that's when it kind of starts. But it still takes a bit to get to it. Because, of course, they have to do this whole catch-up thing, and then they also have to do the whole montage thing of him being in the 1984 and getting used to this time. He's like, oh, there's a trash can, or that's modern art, and this is an escalator, or whatever, and he's just so enthralled by everything. It's funny to watch, but it's like, this thing literally just brought somebody back, like brought the consciousness of them back from the dead. I don't know. So this movie takes a while to get going, and you're just waiting for it to start happening. I was bored out of my mind. The opening scene is also completely pointless. The opening scene of this movie is like a training montage or a sports game or whatever the fuck it was when Diana was a child. And I was like, this is fun. This is actually a really entertaining sequence. I enjoyed watching it. It doesn't come back at any point in the movie to make it relevant. And the first fight scene that happens in this movie, like the first time we see Wonder Woman as Wonder Woman, it's actually kind of weird. It's fun, but it's weird. It's like difficult to sit through because it just feels wrong. It doesn't feel right. It's like too comedic. Continuity wise, this movie, at least from what I remember, Batman vs Superman set up the fact that that Wonder Woman did something way back in 1918, but then didn't do anything in between that time. She just sort of gave up on humanity and just stopped. But then in Batman vs Superman, when Doomsday comes along, that's when she steps back onto the scene, not Man of Steel. There wasn't much that I liked about this movie. Even Pedro Pascal's character, he's over the top and he's completely eccentric, but there's also a point where it's like, I really don't get what he's trying to accomplish. At first it was like he's trying to get money for his company, but then it kept going to the point where I was sort of like, what the fuck, what? Where are you going with this? Like, what's your end game goal? Usually the villain in a movie actually has an end point or has an end goal, and really his end goal sort of ended, but then he kept going, and I was sort of like, where are you going? Like, what's your point in all of this? I did like how his character resolute, or like the resolution of his character, but I also it was just, it was very strange. Like, this movie was very strange. And speaking of very strange, I have to think that anybody who is a fan of Cheetah, anybody who's a fan of that character, is going to be pissed off with this movie. This movie literally throws her into the movie just for a boss fight. That is it. She's in this movie simply, solely, and the entire reason for her character in this movie is just so that Diana can have someone to fight at the end of the movie. That is it. Me, myself, I'm not the biggest fan of Cheetah. I don't know too much about her. I don't know too much about Wonder Woman. But from what I do know, Cheetah is like Lex Luthor to Superman. She's basically the villain that everyone knows of. But in this movie, she's just a boss fight, and her character is just so shit. Her character is baseline shit character. It is as shit character as a shit character could be. At first, I kind of liked her because it was like, okay, she's one of those nerdy girls and doesn't have a lot of confidence, whatever. But then as the movie kept going and her character kept progressing, I constantly rolled my eyes. I seriously don't know why she was in this movie, other than the fact that she had to fight Diana at the end of the movie. Like I said, her motivation is as borderline bullshit character as anything. It is Jamie Foxx from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It is the Riddler from Batman Forever. It is Pamela Isley from Batman and Robin. It is, I like this person. I want to be like this person. I also want to befriend this person, but then this person doesn't like me that much, so I'm going to kill them. Fine. Alright, what else didn't I like about this movie? The special effects in this movie were hot garbage. Honestly, this is a problem that most of the movies that were made this year in 2020 have had. In the gaps where they have been delayed, none of them have been touched. None of them have done anything with them. They were delayed initially, they all just stopped working on it, CGI-wise. The Mulan remake was horribly CGI'd. You know what I mean? It's like these movies that were delayed haven't been polished, even though they've had the time to polish them, to finish all the crap that they didn't have time to finish initially. These movies that you have delayed should be the gold class of CGI, and yet they are borderline bullshit. It is baffling. There is a scene where Wonder Woman is running, and it kind of looks like she's like high kneeing or whatever. But as she's high kneeing her way through the streets, she looks like a CGI character from a video game that was just pulled out of a video game and put right into this movie. I was seriously like, what the fuck was that? Also, since we just got off the subject of Cheetah, let's go back onto it for a second. When they revealed Cheetah as like full makeup, full everything, Cheetah is one of the worst CGI characters that I have seen in a long while. It was honestly one of the worst character designs as well. Like, she doesn't look any better than I would have thought she looked like. And even though it's full darkness, it is the dead of night, you can't see her, or you can't really see her, but she still looks terrible. And that's also in the way that she moves. I was literally, when I saw how she moved in this movie, I literally thought TV budget. That was like as bad as that. Like a TV budgeted movie or a TV budgeted TV show couldn't make something like that, because obviously they don't couldn't make something better because obviously they don't have the budget for it. But a movie that has over $1 billion going into this movie couldn't make it more convincing than a TV show. In the end, this movie is a huge step down from the last movie. It is worse paced. It has less characters in terms of character development, and it is also one of the it is also one of the worst, horribly CGI'd movies that I have seen in a while. And I feel really bad saying that because I know the creators of this movie. They wanted it to come out around Christmas time because it's like we've spent so long making this. We want you guys to experience it. And I'm sorry, but if this is the best you got, then no, just no. Don't do that again, please. But if you guys liked what you see here and you want to see more, please click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll see you guys next time.